Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming this morning. I'll introduce myself. I will be your moderator this morning. I'm from McDonald's Corporation. I'm their technology and privacy attorney, and I'm currently leading AI governance. I come from Singapore, and I moved to Chicago 5 years ago, and I'm really pleased to be here. And this is my panel of my fellow panelists this morning who will talk to you about their experiences and perspectives on driving AI, driving the consumer experience with AI. So over to you, Andrew.
Thank you for the mic. So my name's Andrew Braun. I work at Toloka. I'm responsible for some of our global accounts. We are not a retailer. We are a data labeler. We help with all parts of the ML pipeline. So I've been working in this area for maybe 10, 20 years, in different types of communication technology, and now into AI, which to me is just another way that we communicate better with each other and machines. And we help customers with moderation. So I'll share some of our experiences on how we're using data labeling with our customers.
And I'm Linda Leopold. I work at H&M, global fashion retailer. There my role is head of responsible AI and data, so I'm leading our strategic work on responsible AI and digital ethics, helping our teams to build and use AI tools and innovate responsibly. I've been with the company for 5 years. And I also need to say, it's really nice to be back at AI4. I was actually speaking at one of the early conferences in 2019 when it was very much smaller. So talking about AI and ethics, which was also a bit of a new topic, at least for retail back then. So great to be here again.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to this panel. My name is Miguel Paredes, and I'm VP of AI and Data Science at Albertsons. You might know by some of the other brands, Safeway, Joel Osco, Shaw's, etc. And I lead the AI and Data Science team there, basically doing value creation with AI for personalization, supply chain, merchandising, etc. And happy to be here with you guys.
Great, fantastic. So just to kick off the discussion, I think there's been so much talk about AI, but I think it's really important for us to understand and define what AI that we're talking about. Are we talking about AI, traditional AI, machine learning, or generative AI, in order to really understand what the benefits and challenges are that are associated with implementing these technologies. So I think with that, I'll just throw it to Andrew. Perhaps you'd like to just speak on this topic of what you see to be some of the benefits and challenges in each of associated with each of these types of AI.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, what we're seeing is more of a continuation of where we've been. We've done a lot of work on helping retailers increase their conversion, get better products, better recommendations. And with generative AI, I think it's the same sort of movement along this path where we have a better chance for the consumer to give stronger intents than maybe they had before. And it's coming with a bunch of problems though, right? Like how do we do better moderation where we don't have people in a small tract than they had? How do we make sure that these experiences are fair across the board? It's not just to English users. How do we have some sort of guardrail so you're not going to the grocery store and saying, give me 15 recipes with arsenic in it. That's what we're seeing right now and how we're helping our customers.
And of course, both traditional AI and generative AI are highly relevant to us. We have, if we talk about traditional AI use cases in areas such as demand prediction, pricing, personalization, many different areas. And what's happening now with generative AI is, of course, highly relevant and very exciting. And also being in the creative industry, it will be very interesting to see how we can use generative AI in the creative process when it comes to idea generation, design, marketing, etc. Very exciting.
Yeah, in our case, I'd say most of the work we've been doing around AI has been traditional machine learning. Probably 60–70% of our models are machine learning models. 20% are deep learning models. 10% are NLP. And we just started a generative AI discovery and initiative some 4 months ago, working closely with Microsoft and Google, who's both of them are very strong partners of ours. Obviously, we've got a big data set around grocery retail and also pharmacy and health. So there's interesting things there to do together. I would say we've been catching up as a company. The company's been investing heavily in this space for the last 3 years, but there's other grocery retailers that have been leading the space, Kroger, Tesco, Carrefour, et cetera. But it's been exciting to see the value creation potential out of all the data. I think there's a lot of structured data, which still untapped value. So machine learning's here to stay, and there's going to be a lot to be done there. I don't know if most, but I think most organizations, maybe most organizations it's not clear what the value creation is in Gen AI. I think a lot of them are exploring how to leverage it. And we have obviously 4 use cases we're exploring, and we know potentially there's value there. But I think it's so new. I think there's a reality check, and we have to have we still don't know what the huge value is going to be. It's going to be there. It's just everyone's trying to discover it. I think that's an important message for the audience. Like, if you guys don't have it figured out, don't worry. No, most people don't. Most organizations don't.
So Miguel, can I ask a follow-on to that one, right? So I think things I've been seeing is a lot of co-pilots for the generative case. So how are you thinking about co-pilots as part of that generative side?
Yeah, that's probably one of the obvious ones, in which there's going to be a ton of value in terms of productivity. The question has to do more with when you get over the low-hanging fruit of productivity enhancements, what are the value creation? What are the new things? How do you create new value propositions for your clients? And that's, I think, a risk and a blocker is it's hard to think about a future that doesn't exist. So it's always easy to be tied down by our structures. So there's this professor at Stanford, Eric von Jolfsen, and he has this really cool concept called the Turing trap. For him, the race for AI development and value creation has been stuck in what he calls the Turing trap. This idea of having AI take humans and get faster, quicker, more productive, less errors. And he says that's fine, but we should not only focus on productivity, but on new things. And he argues throughout history, big moments when humanity has had these revolutions have been through technology and us doing things differently, not faster. So I think that's one of the things we need to be thinking of.
Cool, very cool. So how do you think we could use these different technologies to better anticipate and adapt to the changing needs of our customers? Just as technology is evolving fast, the expectations of our customers are evolving really quick as well. So how are we addressing those needs with these new technologies?
I can start. Well, I think one great use case is demand prediction, or maybe a cluster of use cases. And I think I would bring that particular one, because it's really a win-win-win case if you do it right. It's great for the customers if we can align supply and demand much better, because then the customer gets what he or she actually wants. And of course, it's great for the business. And then there's the environmental aspect, that if we do it right and can align supply and demand much better, it will also have an impact on the environment, as we will be avoiding overproduction. So I think, yeah, in general, that's a great use case.
Are you thinking that, again, with the kind of the generative, the new interface where customers will be able to tell you better what they want, does that help with demand prediction, or does that give you too much data?
I mean, it could potentially. I think it's a bit too early to say, but there's definitely potential.
I think there's, talking about preferences of our customers, I think there's a concept of, there's a lot of things our customers know they want, but the offerings are not there. I think there's a lot of, us as customers, there's a lot of things that we need, but don't know that we could be serviced and supplied with certain offerings. So for example, ChatGPT. Up until ChatGPT, whenever we were looking for information, we just put in Google and you got a ton of different options and you had to choose where it was. ChatGPT suddenly had one answer. And besides the risks and the that could have with hallucinations and like the authoritative authority syndrome, I think it is, or bias, people realize, oh, cool, I like this. I like having one answer. I don't want to scroll through it. So I think that's going to happen. We're going to find all these preferences that even our customers don't necessarily know that they would like to be serviced that way. So I think there's an opportunity there too.
Yeah, I think we're doing a lot of work in that area with our customers on data labeling, right? So if you have Nike shoes or whatever, what are the complements, what are the substitutes to give a better level of personalization and recommendation on that one answer, right? And for retail, if people are talking about AI, it really ends up being that part conversion skill. Right? So it's still a little bit.
That's really interesting. And what sort of metrics do you guys typically use to measure the impact and effectiveness of these technologies in terms of customer conversion, retention, increase in sales, or reduction of costs?
Sure. So we're looking at, so besides the model metrics, right, we're looking at business metrics, basically client acquisition, client retention, and client spend. So we're trying to basically measure that. And we use two instruments or metrics models. One is money, so CLV. And we're testing everything we do, or we're trying to test everything we do, and use the CLV as a baseline. And the question we have is, what is the optimal set of interventions offerings for our clients? Price discounts, recommendations, that will increase that CLV. But that's not enough. We're also using NPS or satisfaction because we want to make sure that we're maximizing satisfaction. You could maximize money and not maximize satisfaction. People just leave because some other company will be better at like really caring for you. So those are two things.
Anything that you
Yeah,
share from
I mean,
a fashion retail perspective?
Yes, so I mean, my area is responsible AI, so I think it's interesting to talk about measurement here, but it's also incredibly complex. I mean, how do you measure the success of being responsible? So it's really hard to put numbers on that, but I think you need to look at it from two perspectives. Of course, risk prevention is a big part of responsible AI. But it's also, and I think this might be forgotten, it's also about creating a better experience for the customer or the colleague if it's an AI use case in HR, for example. So it needs to be that balanced perspective, so not only talking about risk prevention, but also about better experience. And it should go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think customers these days not only expect quick product or good services, but their expectations of the companies and the brands that they're interacting with as well. And I think especially in the fashion industry where there's a concern about a lot of change and the impact on the environment. So how does H&M, for instance, weave concerns about ESG, environmental, sustainability, social development into, say, your responsible AI and ethics principles?
It's actually a big part of it. So when we started setting up our responsible AI program 5 years ago, it was done in collaboration with the sustainability department. I think that's what might be a bit unusual, and it usually comes from collaboration with the legal department, privacy, and more risk-based functions. But we started with a collaboration between AI and sustainability. So it's been part of our program from the very beginning, and environmental consciousness is one of the key principles in our digital ethics principles that we have created for the whole company. We also have a digital ethics policy, so this is applicable to all employees across the company. So there's a tight connection between responsible AI and the sustainability strategy and the sustainability department.
So McDonald's, as you guys can imagine, given the amount of packaging that we use, this talent and exchanges is just organizations. So you guys are thinking about want us to be innovative, they want us to be trend with times, but they also want to have that, in their enjoying our products and our services as well, that there's due consideration that's given to all sorts of impacts on the environment. So I'm curious, Miguel, given the broad range of brands that are under the Albertsons company, how do you guys think about this? How do you think about responsible AI and these ESG concerns, given the nature of the business with all that you guys do?
Yeah. So we're educating ourselves about responsible AI. We're talking to experts in the industry to see how we can make sure our frameworks are correct. We're actually doing something about this. We are always looking at bias in our data. You could be training an algorithm on one of the banners, one of the regions, and that might be biased just by nature relative to other regions. So we have these things in mind. We're trying to institutionalize that, incorporate in our framework and our logs, infrastructure, platform as well. And in terms of the ESG, that's very important. It's very important because of the amount of waste there is in general. It could be. So we're working, I have been working on this for a long time now. But one of the things we are also observing is that the grocery retail has a huge potential, not only us, but in general, the industry, to provide a good understanding of what's going on in society. So what happened when there's like a crisis, economic crisis? Do people stop buying greener products because they're a little more expensive? So we actually were working with a professor at MIT around some of these things, and how can you actually use this data as a sensor to society and sustainability issues?
Yeah, I was just going to add, so we don't do a lot of the sustainability side, but certainly on the diversity side, and how do you make sure that as we bring more AI tools in for automatic translation, or we're globalizing a lot of our brands, how to make sure that it does mix with the culture, and you're not using something that's offensive or out of bounds. I think there's a example of the Doctor Strange poster, and it was the same everywhere except for Italy, right? Because there was some sort of obscene gesture in it where maybe it's not anywhere else. So, making sure you get a diverse representation and don't rely on these new models that can do a lot, but are really still trained on a pretty narrow set of English culture.
And I think there's a huge opportunity to use these tools for a lot of employees that maybe have not had opportunities to educate themselves and are in certain positions, which are obviously dignified labor, but still, like, they could access maybe. So we're thinking about this at Albertsons. How can we help some of our employees from certain populations who maybe English isn't the first language, and how can we use tools to make it easier for them to consume the manual, the store manual, or the operations, so I think there's a great opportunity for Gen AI for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really like the point about how we, as part of driving the customer experience, that the employee piece is really important as well, empowering our employees to use AI in a way that's beneficial for them, that makes for a great work experience, which we all know, right, translates happy workers, translates into happy customers. So that's the other piece that may not be as obvious, may not be on the front of mind of marketing folks, but as part of an enterprise-wide strategy, that piece in relation to frontline workers is really important. But just zooming in from the macro considerations of climate, how our customers care about climate and societal impacts of the usage of AI. I'm just wondering, as a customer myself, how do large companies generally think about balancing the trade-offs between great personalization experiences with privacy? I'm a privacy attorney, as I mentioned, but McDonald's has a certain philosophy in terms of how we would balance that, how we would give the reassurances to our customers to ensure that their data, our customers' data preferences, are respected. So I'm just wondering how, in a fashion industry that could profit from being highly personalized and creative, how does H&M handle this situation?
Yeah, I think personalization is such an interesting case because it might not be seen as a high-risk case, but it can be very sensitive. And of course, you need to have a strong foundation. GDPR is very strong in Europe. But then something we work a lot with in our team is case studies, both real and fictional, and really highlighting those difficult cases. So we're working together with the teams to make them see ethical challenges that they might not think of the first time when they start working on a use case. For example, one awareness raising activity we have is called the Ethical AI Debate Club. So it's basically this debate club format where teams, AI colleagues, get to discuss fictional use cases, and they can be around privacy and personalization, for example. So they are divided into teams, and they get a standpoint that they have to argue for. And I think what's interesting to see when we're doing these exercises is that what might feel very natural and your gut feeling from the very beginning is often challenged. So it's a lot about navigating gray zones and finding these fine nuances. And I think personalization is a good example because it's really about those details of getting it right, because you don't want to cross the creepy line when personalization becomes too intrusive. And it could also, of course, be difficult from customer to customer, where you draw your line between what's okay to you. Yes.
Miguel, any perspective?
We're always we seek consent in most of the thing, or not most, in everything that we do. And we have also pharmacies. So obviously we have HIPAA considerations there. But yeah, so one of the things we're really working on is on this, thinking of food and health. So nutrition and health. And we're really training a lot of our algorithms on understanding people's preferences, dietary preferences. And if customers want, we've developed some health solutions for them. So if they're also a pharmacy customer, we're developing algorithms that will take into account their health conditions, again, if they want us to. And we will be able to help them with meal planning or suggestions around the market basket, or we have a food health index. So we score every product based on nutrition guides, and we provide some health. So we're trying to do something there, always very careful with privacy, and the data is our clients.
Cool, great. Maybe we'll switch gears a little and talk a little more about the technical aspects of scaling these technologies. It would be interesting to hear from your experience what some of the challenges you've experienced and seen associated with scaling the technologies from the start to the end, in terms of data quality, model selection, in terms of deployment maintenance, and evaluation. I think yesterday one of the keynote speakers had called out that, hey, you know what, part of a successful strategy in deploying AI technologies involves REL, I think, reinforcement learning and expert feedback. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So, scaling AI is a pain, right? It's really hard, and I think so. Usually, when companies have started doing some machine learning stuff and data science stuff, they start small, unless there's a visionary up the company that says let's invest. They have to create evidence. They have to demonstrate that this way of doing things is better than the other way. They have to find an ally who's not only willing, but also ready, because you can find a lot of allies that are willing, but they're not ready. They don't have the bandwidth, the data's not there, etc. They have to be very strategic around where do you focus, because you don't want to be focusing on things that are not within the strategic plan, because nobody's going to give you time. Or if you show it, what's going to be the reaction is going to be, why are you guys working on that and not on this? But then once you get the traction, you got the team, you got you've shown that there's value there. it's easy to do that because there's a ton of low-hanging fruit, but then scaling that organizationally is hard because you're not working on little islands of data, curated data. You need to start working on larger data sets. The low-hanging fruit gets depleted. So then you have to start creating a platform. You have to, your data scientists who are not used to, don't have the experience, don't have the expertise necessarily to build and do MLOps. Your IT doesn't necessarily have that experience. But most importantly, I think, is processes in the organization don't exist to be able to really do this. So you can have the technology, you can have the will, but I think a lot of organizations fail to see the need to create new processes because to scale, you need to do things differently.
Yeah, I think this is where we help a lot of customers and I completely agree with you. You start on this journey, and really, if you haven't gone on it yet, you don't know that you would need someone like us that then, okay, now we can give you millions of labels in a short amount of time, or we can give you moderation, we can give you metrics. But you have to have started that journey already. Otherwise, you don't quite know where the problem is. It's all about, I think the scaling is about reducing that error, where out of the box you're at 80%, maybe 75 in the real world, but they'll sell you 80. And then how do you start reducing this error down to 10% or 5%, which is quite significant on the improvement you get.
And I can add from a responsible AI perspective then, how do you scale responsible AI, which is also a challenge. I remember when I joined, my manager always told me it's 10% AI, 20% IT, and 70% people and processes. We are working in large, complex organizations, and scaling responsible AI is also a challenge. If I look back at these 5 years when we've been building our program, we are really entering a new phase now. The first phase was fairly simple when we're working with traditional AI. The stakeholder group was fairly small. We were working with our data scientists, ML engineers, product owners, people actually building or maybe procuring AI solutions. So it was fairly limited. And people also have a good technical knowledge. But what we're seeing now with generative AI is that suddenly everyone is a stakeholder. Everyone needs to be aware of our digital ethics principles, our digital ethics policy, that we have a responsible AI program at all. And these are people who might not have technical background or technical knowledge. So it's a whole other story right now. So I think having a foundation for responsible AI is great, but then when you move into the new era of generative AI, it's not enough just to have great governance tools. You need to work so much on culture and communication and trainings and awareness raising. So it's, scaling responsible AI is also challenging.
Do you have a tip on how you get that pushed through the entire?
We're working on it right now, so maybe if I come back next year, I might have some ideas. But I think our responsible AI program has always been built on the combination of governance and culture. So we are always emphasized that culture is equally important. So we can have great tools, we can have principles and policies and technical tools and so on, but it really needs to be synchronized and balanced with our culture activities. So a lot of awareness-raising initiatives, trainings, the debate club that I mentioned, things like that to also make this concrete. Because I think my biggest realization is that a lot of people find, maybe not regulation is pretty understandable, but ethics is super fuzzy to people. Like, what is this? Why do we need to think about ethics? So that's why we work a lot with concrete cases, both real cases and fictional cases. Because then you can almost see it like, now I understand it. Now I understand what it's all about. So an emphasis on culture, I think that becomes even more important. But then exactly how we're going to do it, let's see maybe next year.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've done a lot of studies with our customers who show that they really do prioritize the entire personality of the brand that they're interacting with. So, for instance, from the standpoint of McDonald's, they don't only care about the food and the services, but they care about how we produce the food and how we recruit our employees, how we are treating the environment as as we source and recruit the farmers who are responsible for growing potatoes. So we realized that, hey, you know what? Being a brand and to maintain the stature that we have across the world, there's a lot more work that needs to be done than just delivering burgers that everyone loves. So I totally can resonate with you, especially for a brand like H&M that is global, and especially with all the diverse cultural tastes that you guys need to bear in mind, that really using AI to improve the consumer experience. It's enormous in that we need to really become global citizens to understand all our customers and how they expect us to be using AI to enhance their experience with us. So with that, I'm just wondering, this is such a huge and fast-moving topic, right? How do you guys, doing what you do, how do you keep up with the trends and developments in this huge range of suite of AI products? And what are some of your tips? What resources and sources do you guys use? Andrew, do you want to start off?
Sure. So I think if we're talking about, for me personally, right, it starts with the basic news feed. I'm watching a lot of the stuff out of OpenAI and Microsoft. They seem to be very much leaders in the space together, particularly with the consumer experience. What strikes me is really the pace at which new products have been rolling out. So, any one of these newsletters that says, okay, here they rolled out this, and like, man, they just rolled something out 2 weeks ago. And that's not something we usually see in the technology space, where it's, okay, 6 months, and then, 6 months, and now it's overnight where you're getting something new.
Yeah, a lot of newsletters, podcasts, so on. I love the algorithm, MIT Tech Reviews newsletter. I think that's brilliant. Also putting what's happening in a larger societal perspective. When it comes to responsible AI, I can highly recommend an ongoing study by MIT Sloan Management Review. It's a research project that's been going on for 1.5 years now. So I'm part of an expert panel there where we answer questions. And it's very practical. It's really about the implementation of responsible AI. So if anyone is setting up a responsible AI program or want to dive into the challenges of doing that, I can really, really recommend that. So it's very, it's very practical, and the questions are spot on and very much focusing on the here and now. The latest question was about how do you apply an existing responsible AI program to what's happening in generative AI, and what are the challenges that come with that. So I can really, really recommend that.
There's this newsletter called The Batch, which is Andrew Ng's.
Love that one as well.
Yeah, newsletter. I get that in my inbox. I follow certain people on LinkedIn. Always seeing what's going on, like in top tech companies and top universities. I got my Google News settings for keywords. That's kind of how I keep up.
Yeah, I have a couple of favorites as well. The MIT review, I think, is a great resource. Bloomberg is great, and it's the usual suspects. Wall Street Journal as well. I think the HAI that's associated with Stanford, I think that's a great resource too. Yeah. So I think before I just throw this open to the floor for questions, I'm just intrigued to know to get your thoughts on what you see. I know it's a bit hard to forecast, all in the theme of ChatGPT and forecasting, but what do you guys see as the future challenges and opportunities of these suite of technologies, and how do you think we could prepare to meet them?
I mean, so for me, it's the openness of the generative models, being able to capture so much intent that I think the challenge will be to how do you skinny it down, how do you get the guardrails in place to, particularly in retail, to direct the customer where you want, right? There's not an infinite number of options on the other end. But you have this now infinite number of inputs.
I think what I'm excited about a lot of things, but I'm really excited about how generative AI will be used for creativity, because it's also a bit of an existential question of being in the creative industries. Creativity was something that was really seen as specifically human, and now that's being challenged a bit. But I think collaboration between human and machine in the space of creativity is super exciting. And the challenges I see is going back to scaling. Scaling responsible AI is maybe my biggest challenge right now. And also the uncertainty in the regulatory landscape, which has been a topic throughout the conference. That's also a challenge.
Do you guys think that with generative AI that the expectations of customers are now even higher, and that there are challenges associated with these expectations?
I personally don't think so, not yet. I think it will. I think certain customers who might be a little more informed and have seen what can be done, they probably do have higher expectations. But I think it's not massive yet. That's my opinion.
Great.
Yeah, I would say like, I think it takes the consumer a long time to change a behavior. The one I always liken it to is when you call into the machine on the phone and they say, ask me whatever you want, and describe in a few words, and you still end up going, either representative or cancel my car or my budget or something like that, where it's this one-word answer. So I'm curious whether they change behavior or if it's still you're Googling or you're searching Albertsons for onions rather than a meal plan.
So one concern I have, which is an opportunity and also concern around Gen AI, is I think there's going to be a lot of people left behind, because, and I think this is like very relevant for all of us. Like, if you learn prompt engineering really well today, you could like be very productive and do a lot of really interesting things. So I think just Gen AI as tools will be very important for the future for people. It'll just become like knowing how to use Excel really well, or knowing how to use like a SQL database really well, or I don't know, whatever, an accounting software or method. So I think there's an opportunity there for us as humans to really be more productive and enhance what we're doing. But I think a lot of people who don't have access to that will be left behind. So I think there's an opportunity there, but risk as well.
Yeah, that's on the top of our minds as well in McDonald's, to ensure that, as we keep up with the technology and just continue to enhance all the different channels that we reach out to them, that we don't inevitably leave out those who may not be as technologically inclined, and to be respectful of their journey and their willingness to embrace and to walk along, the different approaches that we will continue to interact with our customers. So with that, I'm conscious that we have only a couple of minutes left, but we'll love to hear questions from you guys. So anyone?
Hi, thank you for all your attention. My question is, retail is very intensive in terms of data. It's very customer-centric. It's such a industry. So my question is related, how you experiment or how you test within the customer journey to like understand how customers may want to thrive in your apps or in your stores, so you can enhance their experience.
I can share what we do. We try to experiment a lot. So experimentation is key. And experimentation, if you guys think about it, is just basically a data generating process. You don't have data on a certain type of response. You set up an experiment or experiments, and that gives you the data. If it's well designed, you can trust the responses. So we, across the journey, we test different type of interventions and see what the response is. It's hard, and this is hard not only for retail but in general, because what you do is you infer, you basically try to infer based on others like the person. It's a cold start problem. For many customers, you don't know the label, you don't know the answer, so you kind of like have to infer and have to say like, let's see what happens, and you start playing around with that.
Yeah, we work with a lot of customers on doing the ongoing metrics as well. As you make changes, how do your metrics change? How do you measure relevance of the various searches?
I think we have We have time for one more question from the gentleman.
Hi, I'm Rex Briggs. I'm writing a book for MIT and working on the governance part. I'm curious how many of you have had to put in new measurements to figure out what type of harms you might expect. Because a lot of times we won't have that in place before AI. And then what type of accountability or RACI model you use to say this person is on the hook in case that harm happens to fix it. And if it isn't fixed, here are the consequences. Have we gotten to that place and figured that out yet, or is that still a TBD on your list?
So can you elaborate a bit? You mean specific measurements around the new risks?
Yeah, exactly. New risks. So a harm might be bias, for example. We haven't really looked to see if an offer was given to a customer because they have a higher customer lifetime value, and therefore they might be younger, and someone who's older has less years of life, so they might have a lower customer value. So we didn't mean it to be ageist, but it was, and so now we have to adjust for that, as an example.
I can start. So. Well, measuring is difficult, coming back to that. I think it's really hard to put measurements on it, but identifying new areas of concerns is something that we are continuously looking into. And there, once again, I think it's so important to have a foundation, to have principles, but then the principles can be very abstract, but you need to then boil it down to the very, very specific questions that come. But measuring is still a challenge.
I would say you just made me think that we're not doing enough. Yeah.
Any last words, Andrew, before we wrap up? Okay, great. Thank you so much. You guys have been a great audience.